welcome to Gazali. Today we have a very special guest with us, P. Sainath. He is one of India's greatest journalists and he is known as the father of rural journalism in India. He is the founder of Pari People Archive of Rural India, and he has authored two important books. One which is Everybody Loves a Good Drought, which talks about his research findings on rural poverty in India, and his latest book, which is called The Last Heroes, that looks at the accounts of his interactions with the unsung freedom fighters of India's independence. P. Sainath has won several awards, both national and international, and one of them is the prestigious Ramon Magsaysay Award. Today we will be talking a little bit about his life, his dedication of almost 40 years of service in just analyzing, understanding, documenting and finding solutions and fighting for the rights of the poorest of the poor in the country, especially the farmers community. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Pleasure.
I think I would like to start first by talking about, as a journalist, you chose the rural India as your karma bhumi. So why rural India and why do what you do?
That's where the people are. I mean, 69% of your population is classified as rural. The second thing is that I am by training a historian. I teach in journalism schools, but I never attended one myself. And that background in history, especially modern Indian history, gave me a much better plug-in to the Indian countryside, because if you're covering an area and you know something about land relations, tenurial relations, the history of usury and money lending in that area, it's going to give far greater depth to your stories. Second, the rural has been at the heart of every major event or every major upheaval in Indian history, including your independence, struggle for independence. All the great battles of Indian history in the anti-colonial struggle began in the villages, whether with, the villagers of Jungle Mahal in West Bengal, Purulia, a bit into Bihar, or the villagers of Veerapandya Kattabomman, the hero who fought the British in Tamil Nadu, or the uprising of 1857, where all the soldiers were essentially farmers in uniform, and even today the Indian Jawan is a Kisan in uniform. It all started in the villages. In the 90s, I even did a set of stories for the Times, and 5 villages in different parts of the country which were at the center of great anti-colonial revolts. So, I mean, it's also the huge gaps in income, wealth, particularly of marginalized communities within the villages. For me, journalism is about the everyday lives of everyday people. They are everyday people.
And truly, I mean, you are doing authentic, real stories of India. And I think it's not just you, but I think you've sort of created a force now, especially through the organization Pari, People's Archive of Rural India. And if you can tell us a little bit about what the organization does and what is the vision of Pari?
See, Pari is a multimedia free access digital space. Yeah. And we are building what I believe will be, if it's not already, the largest repository of the rural in the world, but certainly the largest repository of the rural in India already. And with the kind of developments you've had in China in the last 30 or 40 years, I think the Indian rural is really large. Yeah. 69% of the population are based there. You have the largest body of smallholder farmers in the world who own their own land. But Pari, People's Archive of Rural India, one, it is an absolutely free to air, free access to public service. 2, we don't carry advertisements because we think there's enough channels and websites and selling enough crap to youngsters that they don't need,
Yeah.
but are somehow made to want.
Yeah.
We don't take direct grants from governments, central or state, or direct grants from corporations as a means of keeping our independence. Because what you've seen in the so-called mainstream media, a ridiculous term, a media that excludes 75% of the population from coverage, why would it, why would you call it mainstream? Yeah. And third, this is very important, Pari publishes every day in 15 languages, in English and 14 other Indian languages. The languages we publish in have 1.02 billion speakers in this country. We even publish in languages like Assamese, Bhojpuri, Chhattisgarhi, and of course Hindi and Urdu, So that I think is. Fourth, kids are growing up with no idea of what their country is about. They're more familiar with metros, not only with the metros in India, than also with the metros in the United States and Europe, than they are with great historic locations within India. Fifth, we try making, it's like what I've been doing for 44 years. We need a much larger group of journalists to be doing that. And Pari is trying to create that cadre, that generation. Yeah. We have we have 37 or so full-timers, but meaning people who receive a monthly honorarium, and countless hundreds of writers, reporters, contributors. We see the country as being formed, in my calculation, there are 95 regions in the country. That is, natural physical regions and historically, politically evolved regions. Like Malabar is a natural physical region, but it's also the kingdom of Malabar, those areas, were politically evolved states. So, if we look at this, India has 95 regions. Say Maharashtra has 6 regions. Western Maharashtra, Mumbai, the Konkan, Nashik, the Nashik division, Khandesh, and Vidarbha, Western Maharashtra. You do have 6 regions. Bihar has 6, UP has 6, Rajasthan 6, Tamil Nadu 4, and Andhra now 3. Coastal Andhra, Rayalaseema, and the Uttara Kosta, the northern tip. We want that, if you look at the daily newspaper, you'll find that 80%, 90% of your news comes from 5 or 6 cities. Yeah. 66% in the front page comes from New Delhi. Yeah. Yeah. What we want is that every single region in the country should be reported on, its stories to be told, and become part of the represented in the rural repository. So that's what Pari is about. We cover culture. I don't think anyone covers culture on the scale we do, like the Zatyavarchi Ovi, the grind mill songs. The grind mill songs. Yeah. We have 110,000 songs. Wow. Ovi, 110,000 Ovi. And each of them is sung as a song, at home. We go to the villages, get people the original people if possible, to perform it, from whom it was first taken, and that's it. We have published about 700, 800 of the Ovi. Wow. And then there are the Kutchi songs we've started, about 350. So the other thing is, right now, just to give you an idea of the kind of things our fellows do, there's a fellow in Assam, Himanshu Saikia, who is doing people's music in rural Assam. There he has done two fantastic ones so far. One is a buffalo herder. He's not a professional singer.
Okay.
He's just got a beautiful voice and sings beautifully.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, he hasn't trained anywhere.
Yeah.
He hasn't performed on stage anywhere. He's done that. So he's doing his work and he's singing, and it is simply a brilliant song. Then he has got Santo Tanti, a tea garden worker in Assam,
Okay.
and recorded in the field. The dancers for the Bihu and the other songs of Assam are women from the tea garden workers. They're not professionals, they're not part of a troupe. They're actually people who actually do this in their village celebration.
Yeah. Oral histories.
Yeah. So they're doing, it's turning out to be one of the best things we've ever done. Then we have our understanding is that everything you do has to be done through storytelling.
Yeah.
Nothing should read like a random report on something. We don't want essays. We want the voices of the people you're covering to dominate the coverage. Yeah. I think we now have the largest repository of photographs of rural India and maybe rural anywhere. Yeah. Say, including we own 10,000 black and white negatives of rural India, what I shot over 30 years.
Wow.
It becomes Pari's property now. Yeah. Then we have an incredible number of formats. Yeah. Even when we do video, and we have done prize-winning videos, even when we do video, we don't embed subtitles. Yeah. We put it on YouTube, and the subtitles can go up in 14 languages. You can choose, I want to watch my Konkani documentary in Kashmiri or whatever language we can get the subtitles for, you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pari will complete 10 years on December 20th. So far, in these 9 and 3/4 years, starting with 2016, which makes it, in 2016, our first award, journalism award. We have won 71 journalism awards.
Wow.
19 of them international. And these are won by young people. Yeah. Only 3 or 4 awards are overlapping with mine, where I've led the team for covering climate change, for instance. That has won 3-4 awards. But there are 25 people participating in it. And then there is the issue of, so out of those 19 awards are international awards, really big ones, including European Commission's award, all that sort of stuff.
Global Summit Award.
That 71 awards is more than the Times, Hindustan Times, Hindu and Indian Express, I think, can claim. I'm very sure of it in the last 10 years. Yeah. Certainly not awards of this eminence and stuff, including, by the way, I think twice, thrice the Ramnath Goenka. Yeah, we are part of that award. So this is what Pari is about. It's about young people. It's about maintaining a history and a perspective for the future. It's for people who can't afford to subscribe to specialized magazines. It's for college students and high school students who need material and they can read it in their own languages. And it's also about totally free access. There is no subscription fee. We work on Creative Commons 4.0, all of this. Yeah.
So it's also like the communities that you interact with. I mean, the Dalits, the OBC community, or I mean, like you mentioned, so many people from the forest gatherers. So I think that's also the specialty of Pari, right? The people that you work with.
It is embedded in our mandate that we have to try our best not to just tell stories about the marginalized communities, but to generate journalism within those communities. We try very hard to do that. We try seeing that our fellows are representative of the national demographic. So 50% of our fellows, we've had about 40-50 fellowships. 50% of our fellows would have to be women. It's actually about 60-70%. With the Dalits and Adivasis, it takes more time. But we do have we do have some fantastic photographers working with Pari who are from these communities, and therefore their stories, their work shows far greater empathy and understanding of the issues of those communities. We are also, by the way, apart from publishing in 15 languages, running a project on endangered languages.
Okay.
Languages that face the possibility of extinction within this century. Within maybe the next 40. In the last 50 years, 225 Indian languages have gone extinct. That's one at the rate of about one every 90 days. So somewhere, somebody, see, it's our boast. Maybe even now, but certainly 25 years from now. Anyone who wants to know how ordinary Indians lived, what India was like, what the majority of the Indian population were like, they need to know what did people wear, what did they eat, what work did they do, what was their cultural practices and traditions. They will have no place to turn but to Pari.
Lovely. I mean, I would like to now move on a little bit to, the farmers community particularly. I mean, you said that they've been part of all the struggles, the most important one, and today they're feeding the entire nation. But then why do we then treat the farmers the way we do, in terms of the schemes, the policies, the agrarian crisis that are happening, and now the protests that have just taken place?
It has everything to do with the economic path of economic development that we embraced in 91, though it starts prior to that with our IMF loans and all in the 80s. But in 91, we make a clean break with the ideals of a welfare state and we have now built very significantly, to a significant extent, a corporate state. A state, where the government is a creature of giant corporations. Like you're seeing right now.
Of course.
Yeah. So the farmers historically have been at the center of every major uprising, even during under the Mughal Empire, etc. There have always been farmer rebellions, peasant revolts, going back to ages. So, in the freedom struggle, they were the battering ram. Gandhi understood that after going to Champaran, that this is where the energy is. This is where the force lies with. So that was the thing. Now, having created the thing, a path of development that is corporate driven, what we are trying to do is to hand over the most important work sector of the Indian economy to corporations. That's why those 3 laws were passed. Those laws were not drafted in any parliamentary committee. They were drafted in the boardrooms of major corporations in this country. Very powerful. 2 or 3 of the most powerful corporations. Having done that, you are in effect trying to take wealth away from.
Poorest.
In India, wealth does not trickle down. In fact, nowhere in the world has this trickle down theory worked. It goes up. I'll give you an example. The year 2020-21. India's GDP shrank 7.7%. The GDP shrank. Yeah? And in that year, our billionaires doubled their wealth and we added 42 billionaires, which was more than we had added in the preceding decade. Okay? So if the economy had cataclysmically shrunk, how did these guys double their wealth? The money came from below. It was sucked out from the farm sector, from ordinary people, from millions of people being rendered bankrupt, that whole way. So what you're seeing is a worldwide struggle of farmers versus corporations. Today, BlackRock is probably the biggest owner of farmland in the world. Yeah? So what you're looking at in India is the largest body of smallholder farmers in the world is fighting for it's survival. So it started as a farming crisis in the mid-90s, late 90s. That became an agrarian crisis by the turn of the millennium, because agrarian is much more than just farming. Farming is cultivators and farm laborers, whom I call landless farmers. But then your Julaha, your Mistri, your weaver, your potter, they are part of agrarian society, which means you're not a cultivator, but you're dependent on how the farmer is doing. They are your market.
Yeah.
You are dependent on how, if no farmer for 5 years recycles tools, sharpens tools, orders a new plow or a new bullock cart, the carpenter starves to death. Because most of his payments come in kind, not in cash. 1/3 comes in cash, the rest in kind. In many villages, now that's changing, but that's how it was. And so it became an agrarian crisis. I would say by 2010-11, it had become a societal crisis. Like you saw in Andhra Pradesh, the defeat of Chandrababu Naidu, all these things, in that decade, 2001 to 2011. So you have it becomes a societal crisis. Today, with the largest body of small farmers trying to survive, I call it a civilizational crisis. Because what was your civilization built on, if not small farmer households, including Adivasi farmers? I define farmer as farmer, landless farmer, tenant farmer, Mahila farmer, Dalit farmer, Adivasi farmer.
So, what you call the civilizational crisis, I think you've also now slowly started sort of, in your book, in your latest book, you've also looked at how they were a part of the independence struggle as well, and a lot of stories, almost 15 stories that you've looked at are about these people and the freedom fighters that we never heard about. So I think before we just close, if you could just tell us a little bit about the book and what you differentiate between independence and freedom.
See, what I find heartbreaking for the new generation is, and future generations, in 3 to 5 years, there will not be a single Indian freedom fighter left alive. In my book, The Last Heroes, Foot Soldiers of Indian Freedom, out of the 15 characters, 4 or 5 are today living. Yeah. The youngest is 98, the oldest is 105. 98 is the infant. Okay, 2 of them. But what happens when they're gone? Present and future generations of Indian children will never get to see, listen to, talk to, get an autograph from, touch, or otherwise engage with a bona fide, genuine freedom fighter who made sure you live in an independent nation. So I started panicking when I've been interviewing them for over 20 years. Because I got so bogged down in the agrarian crisis, I didn't speed up enough. Yeah. Then suddenly 18, 19, 20, they were dying very fast. So I completed it. What I learned from these people is that precisely the answer to your question, the difference between independence and freedom. The first line of the book, Captain Bao says, we fought for 2 things. We fought for independence and freedom. We attained independence. He's saying you have not attained freedom. All of them using different language, different jargon, make this common point. Independence is an event. It's an event. Freedom is a process. Maybe a never-ending process as you discover new freedoms. Independence was throwing the colonizer out of your country and replacing it with a nation state based on rights and citizens' rights. Freedom is what is something that liberates the human being, from humiliating work, from degradation, from destitution. What you find in the directive principles of state policy, the right to work, the right to food, implicit right, the right to shelter, health, and in the preamble to the Constitution, justice for all, social, economic, and political. So those things they had in mind as attainment of freedom. That's what they saw as the difference, and that's what I learned as the difference between independence and freedom.
I think our generation has definitely got India on a platter, and I think that, you know, talking about the fight for all these freedoms is also our responsibility now to take forward. And I think I really hope that, you know, we're able to also carry your vision forward and sort of take part in that struggle.
I think that if you look, the anti-CAA agitation had tens of thousands of very young people in their teens, some of them 17, some of them not yet adults, congregating at the gates of colleges and reading from the Indian Constitution. I think that's a very, very heartening sign.
I mean, let's hope that continues, and you know, thank you so much for this conversation, and we really hope to make your work louder and take part with you in that mission to make India better again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.